this syllabus has basically, it is interconnected. Okay, so in the last sem we finished with investment models. And one of them is liquidity preference. Liquidity preference theory. Okay, now this will lead us to the LM curve. Okay, and here the first thing that we'll study is IS curve, which is again an extension from SKM. Okay, so just let me clarify it again. Okay, so we have studied SKM in the last sem. From SKM, we are going to derive now the IS curve. Okay, and from liquidity preference theory, we will have an LM curve, and these two, adding these two, we will have our first topic, and that is ISLM. Okay, now ISLM is essentially is a Keynesian model. It's a Keynesian model, but this model is developed by Hicks, John Hicks. Okay, so that will be our first point of start. And this ISLM model, they give us together. They give us the aggregate demand curve, so the AD curve. Now you have studied the classical model. In classical model, our prime concern was to know about the price level and the output or quantity, okay, and how they are determined and all that. So when I'm working in a Keynesian structure, the ultimate objective is obviously to have those two things, so price level and the output. Okay, so on the so for that we need aggregate demand curve and aggregate supply curve, much like what we had in classical theory. But the theories underlying, they are entirely different. They start from totally different points. Okay, so this is how we get the AD curve. Okay, SKM to IS, then liquidity preference from there to LM, then ISLM, they give us AD curve. Now we need AS curve here. Okay, so that AS curve comes from a different set of models. I'll just say that this AS curve, the shape of this AS curve, it has four typical models which analyze basically the same thing, but obviously from four different perspectives. And obviously each of them are very small compared to ISLM model. Okay, so one of them is sticky wedge. Number two is sticky price. Then there is a model called workers misperception. And then there is imperfect information model. Okay, so these are the four models. Okay, and all the four, they independently derive the shape of AS curve. Now obviously once we have AD curve from here and AS curve from there, what we are left with is a model which combines AD and AS. Okay, so we'll have that. So ADAS, what I say is we call this ADAS model. Now you can understand, looking back, ADAS model has a huge number of underlying models. But at ADAS model, we analyze the Keynesian way of looking at the price level and the quantity that you observe in the economy. Okay, how they are determined and all of that. And then we have what we had in SKM also, we have always policy effects. So to that extent, we have fiscal policies and monetary policies and so on. Okay, so this is one part. Okay, and this part is quite big. It has promptly. Okay, also in ADAS model, we will see both the short run and the long run. Okay, so in ADAS model, I'm just going to erase this part. So in ADAS model, we have both short run and long run scenarios. And by those scenarios, we will actually try to understand how the long run scenarios matches with the classical one. Okay, so in long run we will have this scope with comparing with classical model, and in short run we'll have a Keynesian case. Okay, and there we will study policy effects. So this is one part. Okay, the big part, and then we will look into some of the difficulties of interpreting the economic phenomenons using this ADAS model. Okay, so we'll have at times what you are called hybrid models. But anyways, so after this study of SR and LR, we'll go to a topic which is very small but very interesting and very insightful. That is called classics versus Keynes. So in here we will look at the differences. All right. And as I said that regarding to the bigger kind of implications or assumptions regarding how some of the most important economic variables or macroeconomic variables behave, there is a continuous kind of continuous contrast. So we have to study that to a large extent. We'll study a huge part here and a small part in the next sim. Okay, so let me just talk about the ordering again. So we'll start with ISLM, then we'll go to the supply side models, so aggregate supply, and then we'll have this large topic ADAS. Okay, and from there we'll go to classics and Keynes, classicals versus Keynes, and then we'll have what you'll see in the syllabus is written as hybrid models. Okay, by hybrid models we mean that models which try to kind of try to kind of join both the classical implications and Keynesian implications and try to bring up something about the economy. One of the most important extended topic is Friedman's counter revolution. Okay, and while studying this Friedman counter revolution, two things will be quite important in this topic. Number one is the ISLM model that we'll study now, and the number two, which we have studied in the last sem, which is the quantity theory of money. Quantity theory of money. Okay, you will come to know about a lot of school of thought in macroeconomics. We have studied the classical school of thought. Then now we'll largely study the Keynesian school of thought, and then we'll study the Friedman's one, which is called monetarist school. Okay, monetarist school, and as apparent from its name, it's basically a school of thought which says that money supply is the primary determinant of what is going to happen in the economy regarding the important macro variables. So money supply is kind of the mother of all the consequences that you observe. Okay. Now, so this is one part. Okay. The best reference, according to me, is Freund. Okay, Richard T. Freund. This is the best reference. It has the best theoretical analysis. It talks very well about all the models, and also it has good diagrams. So one of the important thing that every time many students miss is how these models are connected. Okay, and that is something that Freund does very beautifully. It shows how all of these are connected to a single thread, and it's important because if you understand the thread, then you will have a less to study once you encounter a new model. Okay, you don't have to look back all the time to what you have studied earlier. So Freund has that huge advantage of theory. Okay, now apart from this, we have two other things. One which you have not studied yet, and it is basically it is supply of money, a topic which you have not studied and a topic which forms the basic of uh, you know of my macroeconomics, supply of money. The best reference of this is Ghosh and Ghosh. Okay, if you don't have it, I'll just photocopy the relevant chapters and send you. Okay, and we'll use Ghosh and Ghosh in some other cases also. It has some of the slightly difficult but quite good expositions of all that. And as I said, also for supply of money, you can study Freund. Okay, it has obviously good expositions, but regarding supply of money, you need to know the Indian side, because when you are studying macro sitting in India and talking about supply of money, you must know how RBI defines the types of money, how they segregate it, how they work with it, the policies that they work with, and to what effect. Okay, so in supply of money, we will also have a small discussion on monetary policy. Okay, it will be different from the monetary policy discussions that we will have while studying the model. It will have it will have a more practical outlook. Okay, for example, what central bank can do, what central bank actually does, and how that creates effects in the society or in the economy. Okay, to that extent. Okay, and related to that, I mean, as the other side of the story to that, we'll study also about government policy, or as we know it, fiscal policy. We'll talk about something called deficit financing. Okay, because government doesn't print money, right? That is the department of RBI. Although government controls the rights of doing so, but when the government is kind of taking a policy, whether it is of one of expenditure or one of increasing taxes, always there is a question when it comes to expenditure. There is a question of financing it. So where from the money is going to come? And given that we need money to make an expenditure, that relates the debt that is made by the government to the monetary policy side that we are talking about. So that's how these two are connected. Okay, fiscal policy, to the extent it requires financing, is connected to monetary policy. If you have studied economic times for the last I'll say 3 months, you will know how important that is. Because you see, currently the government increasing the oil price, the central government increasing the oil price. Okay, one of the reason is that the financing that the government is going through, okay, regarding this COVID and their effects on the economy, okay, you need to finance it somehow. So one of the avenue that government has is taxation. Okay, and now we don't have trade, so that's a huge problem. Also, the World Bank is saying that they are coming with help. They are looking to help the countries which are finding it very hard to survive through COVID. And if you must know, there are countries in Africa who has different difficult problems compared to COVID. For example, Ebola. Ebola is quite a big problem in Africa. Okay, so all that connects an international institute through which, if in problem, the government can ask for money as a debt. And if the government is in debt, then the government has to make the interest payment. And that interest payment connects the debt to the monetary policies. So all that is basically connected quite well. Okay, so this is the reason that we study supply of money and then monetary policy, and then we'll also study about fiscal policy. So that in a budgetary framework rather than a model framework. Okay. All right. And the third thing, so this is our second thing. The third thing that we have is, if I write it, it's basically Phillips curve in a nutshell. But what we have is this inflation and unemployment problem. Okay. It's a problem because as Phillips curve goes, we say that though inflation and unemployment, they are two major concerns of an economy, both of them cannot be reduced simultaneously. So it works in a very difficult way. If you want to reduce inflation, you will have a higher unemployment. And if you want to lower unemployment, you will have a higher inflation. And there are some cases when you have both, which is quite dangerous. That is called stagflation. Okay. That is stagnant inflation. An economy which is characterized both by high inflation and higher rate of unemployment. That's very difficult situation to control. Okay, so we'll talk about that in our suitable time. But anyway, so Phillips curve. Now, Phillips curve is also something which connects our short run AS curve. Okay, Phillips curve is also something which connects the short run AS curve, and that's how this is connected to the first topic that we are talking about. Okay, so AS curve is essentially obviously a relationship between y, right, y and p, and the connection between Phillips curve or inflation and unemployment with y and p is quite trivial. It is trivial because you see, if you have a reduction in output, then you will have a higher unemployment, which we are having now. And if you have a change in price level to the higher direction, you will have inflation. Okay. So theoretically, to understand very intuitively, that's how these two are connected. Phillips curve has always taken a center stage of policy effectiveness, because in some way or other, the government, what it tries to do is control both of them. And by theory, it says that you cannot control both of them. Okay, it also says a lot of things that we'll study. So this is how this topic is quite valuable. Also, also if I talk about problems, that is numerical problems, so to say, the numerical problems that we face here, supply of money, not here, in supply of money, they are pretty easy, to be honest. Okay, and the problems that we'll have to solve in the first topic, they are quite huge in size, but if you learn the model well, then those problems are big but not hard. The problems related to Phillips curve are of a different kind. So we'll learn that when we'll be studying this. Okay, now for Phillips curve also, you can always go for Freund. Okay, but one of the good reference is Bernanke, Ben Bernanke's book. Okay, I'll just write the name here. Okay, so one of the good reference is Bernanke. Bernanke was chief of Federal Reserve once. So you can always say that he has a higher side while talking about all of this. Okay. Okay. So this is what we have. Now we will have a general discussion on the books. Okay. So going in the same manner, I will first talk about the basic books. So the basic books are obviously the two you may already have or solve problems. Number one is Mankiw's macroeconomics. Okay, not principle or anything, just macroeconomics. And for this, I will say it is better if you have 5th edition or 3rd edition. It is better. The latest one, that is the 9th edition, it's not that good to read. And number two is Dornbusch. Dornbusch, I think Fisher and Stards, right? Okay. All right. Now, these are basic books. Okay. They have all the things that you have talked about, and they have it at a basic level. When it comes to problem solving, we will start from this book. Okay. So we'll start from this book. I'll not obviously give the whole exercises, but I'll give selected problems to solve. Okay, now regarding these two books, Dornbusch is a bit complex in reasoning than Mankiw. Mankiw puts it always very simple, and in keeping it simple, at times it omits a lot of things. Okay, in some cases they are important, in some cases they are not. So when we'll be doing the class, you will understand. Okay, and as I said always, that I will suggest to read Freund always. And while problem solving, you can look back at some of the sections of these books. Okay. Now, the use of basic books remains the same. If you find Freund to be hard, you return. And in that case, I will say that first go to Dornbusch, because it's a bit difficult than Mankiw, and that's where it wins actually. Okay. And there is always Mankiw. Mankiw's book is always there. If you find it difficult, just go through it. But to have a complete understanding, okay, they're not really advanced book, but anyways, I'll write it like this. Okay. To have a complete fine understanding, always go through Richard T. Freund. It has the best theory. It's very well written, very well lucid. It has a lot of examples. Okay, you will get an interest in macro if you read this. Okay, now one. Number two is Ghosh and Ghosh. It's not really advanced in sense, but as I mentioned, that we'll study some of it, some part of it. Okay, and regarding problem solving, as I said, that we will have solving problems from these two books, because Freund has only theoretical questions. Okay, Freund lacks essentially the numerical problems. It doesn't have any. So for problem solving, we'll do these two, and I may give one or two from here. If I give, I'll send the photocopy. But for problem solving, the real book is of Bernanke's, okay, the Ben Bernanke's book. This book has quite good number of problems, and also this has entrance standard problems. At least some of them are quite entrance standard. Okay. And they ask you to solve a lot of things. It kind of challenges your understanding. So we'll do this and also some of this. Okay, so this is the complete thing. Now you had a reference in the last sem, which is Branson. In terms of theory, this is an old book. Okay. So I will not ask you to refer this. Given the time of a semester, you will hardly get to open a second book to read, honestly. So as a first book, in my micro, I suggested Pavlov. In macro, I will suggest Freund. And Branson, if it requires anything, I'll talk about it. Okay.